Welcome, my name is Steve Stannis, the Senior Minister at KAC Anglican Churches, and it's my privilege to welcome Aidan, our Assistant Minister. First of all, just a little bit about you, Aidan, and your background.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Well, I came here from Gunnedah and I'm loving being the Assistant Minister here at KAC Anglican Church, but I'm keeping busy as well. So I'm also a member of our local RFS unit with Jamboree, and I'm doing some study at Moore College right now too.
Tell us a bit about what you're studying then.
Well, it's part of my growth as a church leader. Steve, I'm ordained at the moment, so I am a reverend, but apparently I need to be more ordained or more reverend to be able to lead a church down the track. So they're getting me doing some study to that end. Right now I'm working on a subject called worship and congregational ministry. So I've already done an essay on the Lord's Supper, and at the moment, I'm actually doing a study into online church and what makes that work and how we can do that well.
Yeah, I know that we've been hearing about this at our staff meeting, and even the parish council have heard about it, but we'd like to also share a bit of this information with our whole church and see what the study's meaning for us at this time, studying online.
Yeah, great. Well, I chose to do this study for that reason. I think it's going to really help us to think about both what we have been doing and how we can do church well into the future. I've learnt a whole lot about how people interact with KAC online. So it turns out 90% of people, most people, watch church every week, but only 10% watch it as a family. There are a small number of people who watch with bigger groups, so they might gather with friends, for example, and we're wondering if that number might grow now that restrictions have been eased too.
So the online services that we can enjoy to watch together, you're finding that people are watching the whole online service each week?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's actually 50-50 as to whether people watch the whole service. So yes, half of people said they do watch everything, but the other half said that they usually skip some sections of the service, and that's usually going to be either the kids spot, some of the songs, or sadly sometimes the announcements, which is a shame because how do you know what's happening?
The announcements are meant to be called the weekly update because we're trying to give you good information. I do encourage you to listen to those. I think you were telling us there's about 70 different responses you've received on this study you're doing, so it's a good number of people from our church.
That's right. Yep.
But singing, people singing along to songs and hymns, what are you finding there?
Yeah, I was pretty excited actually. 3 out of 5 people that were surveyed, they do sing along with some or all of the songs. And the rest of people usually either listen reflectively, or a small number, 1 in 10, do say that they skip most songs. So over half of people are singing along, and then the others tend to be listening reflectively.
What are some of the other things that people are valuing that they don't skip over in the services week by week?
Yeah, so the huge majority of people, Steve, they said that they really value both the sermon and the Bible reading, and that was followed closely by prayer. The next thing people said that they really value, though, was a bit of a surprise. 3 out of 5 people said that they really value seeing familiar faces. I asked what people would like to see more of in the service, and the number one response we got was more personal testimonies. The second response was theological discussions. People would like to see some of that. In fact, nearly half of respondents said they'd like to see more of that. Another surprise was in terms of what we call liturgy, so thinking of the Anglican prayer book. 4 out of 5 people say that they would love to have the Lord's Prayer, and a large number of people also said they'd like to have confession and absolution. And it's interesting because with, as we say, 71 responses, we know that that's not just an 8 a.m. thing. That represents a broad demographic in our church.
Yeah, the study that you've been doing under God, it's been such a good timing that we've actually noticed with the preaching feedback that people, when we have those Sunday conversations, people want you to talk more about the sermons. I suspect we're going to do this in the future beyond when we can return to church together again all the time. What about some of the things about services that that people are okay with, but and others that aren't okay with in the services? What are you noticing there?
Yeah, well, I think what we saw is that there's a real diversity in terms of church, but most people are pretty happy with what we've been trying to do, which is really encouraging. There was a general note of thankfulness that came out throughout the survey, and obviously, you know, we do things like ask about length of the service. Is it too long, too short, or about right? And most people said it's about right, 4 out of 5 people. Likewise for the sermons, again, most people say it's about right. There's always a slight leaning either way, but it was interesting to see that that's kind of on the centre there. When it comes to the other bits of the service, like music choice, for example, that's where you start to see the diversity comes out. Some people think we should do everything indoors. Some people think they really like the outdoor stuff. Some people hate Celtic worship music. Other people love it. And so I guess what you see is there's no real one right way to do church. It's actually a diversity of ways that you can do church.
Okay. Did you have any sort of fear or uncertainty going into this study?
Yeah, definitely. Steve, I'd say my big fear was that people might feel that, it just doesn't feel like church. Or they might say that they have a real sense of disconnection from one another. And although there have been people who've noted, it's sad to be not meeting together week to week, that feeling of disconnection or that feeling of it just doesn't feel like church hasn't been the main thing we've heard back. And I thank God for that.
What are you now learning, do you think, from the studies that you've been doing that we can, as we think forward in the next phase for church life, that you're learning for us?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think other than what we've noted about people's preferences and what they like and what they don't like, the big thing that I notice is it's going to take patience between each other and for our congregations as well, because we're in this awkward time that's disjointed people, and also because, as I say, there's a real diversity in what people value. I don't think anyone's going to be stoked about everything all the time. And so it's going to call for patience and love as we bear with each other.
Yeah, thank you. That's great, that feedback. And also it's an interesting time for us at this moment as we take the first steps in reopening up again. Last week is having the gatherings of up to 10 slowly coming back. Also thinking about being appropriate with the public health and the government steps, but also thinking about wisdom as we seek to reopen the church in the appropriate way and time under God. You've got more questions that you've either thought that Aidan's raised today by his study, or even what I'm just raising now as the church begins to think about reopening. We'd love to hear from you. It's appropriate to speak to Aidan and myself and Ivan King, our warden. We'd be here to help you at any time. There is a lot beginning to unfold as we speak, but one opportunity that's quite important that we asked about a week or two ago was the idea of maintenance and cleaning. If you can assist that part of church life, it's important not just to make the church look good when not many people are here, but always being ready for the next phase. Then you can contact the office through Michelle or Rowan Ken King. You can also, not King.
That's all right.
But he's managing it so that we can have things ready, and also people might be able to provide other assistance help for maintenance and care in our church and beyond. Thanks for tuning in today, and we do hope that you'll continue to pray with us as we continue to transition in the church at this next step together. Thanks, Aidan. Cheers.
Cheers.